Acting on your ideas is a form of self-love. And when I decided to write the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal, it was with you in mind. Storytellers with stories inside of you that you need to get out into the world. But life, fear, uncertainty has a way of leaving us stuck. But no more. It's time to reclaim our creative practice and get unstuck. The Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal can help you get back on creative track. 30 days of dynamic prompts, exercises to stimulate creativity, alongside motivational quotes, journal pages, and more. If you're ready to create again, get your copy of the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal today at creativecomeback.com. That's creativecomeback.com. Because it's never too late to become the artist you always wanted to be. That's how this business survives, is by having us have our worth intrinsically tied to it, right? Because when we realize we don't need this business in the way that they want us to need it, things would change and shift dramatically. Child, we did it.
Woo, woo.
We are here with a whole podcast. A whole podcast. Not half a podcast. A whole podcast.
That's right. 100.
Welcome to the Creative Cut Up Podcast, a lively and honest space for storytellers that sits at the intersection of craft, business, and independence. I'm Felicia Pride, a writer, director, producer, head honey and honey child, and head storyteller of the Create Daily, a platform I founded in 2012 to help storytellers, especially those of us who are historically excluded, thrive creatively and professionally. And I'm here with my co-host because we got some cutting up to do.
We sure do. I'm Dria Rowland, the creative executive at Honey Child and a writer and producer.
Yes, she is.
And I'm Georgette Pierre, a voice actor and producer. You can hear it, right?
Oh, we hear that
That's
voice,
right.
honey.
Oh,
we
yeah.
hear the voice.
Oh, yeah.
So join us weekly where we talk shop and smack and share the good, the bad, and the ugly. Child. And from 3 different perspectives, which I love, providing tangible tips to support your creative practice, your career, and your artist self. Because we all know that being an artist is hard as hell.
Oof. Say that.
But the Creative Cut Up is here to help. Shall we begin, ladies?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So during our Make Your Short Film intensive workshop that's part of the Create Daily Lab, someone asked me, could they see what film festivals we applied to for Look Back at It, which ones we got in and which ones we didn't get in. And I was like, sure, because I basically, as part of my presentation, had showed them our rejection, they call it acceptance rate, right? And I think it's like 40% for tender or 39% for tender and 40% for Look Back at It. So around the same thing.
What?
So yeah. So I showed them all the film festivals we did not get into and people were like shocked by it. And I really am so neutral to the rejections of it all because I know all the politics behind it, but I also know the wonderful work that we did. And I also am really focusing on those film festivals that really celebrated us and the audiences that celebrated us. But going through that, I was like, yeah, there's a lot of film festivals we did not get into. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, in this, as being an artist, rejection is like part of our lives on a consistent basis. So I would love for us today to talk about that, dealing with rejection. How do we deal with rejection? How do we keep going? What has been our experiences with rejection, all that good stuff.
Something that I think about, and this is a conversation I'm constantly having with girlfriends, is how do I navigate separating my worth from the things that I'm getting rejected from, right? These entities, whether it's a corporation, whether it's a platform, whether it's a job I'm applying to. And that's been a challenge for me. Like my worth shouldn't be attached to these things, but capitalism, right? But fill in the blanks on that. And so I will admit it's still something I'm navigating, but sometimes it's hard not to take some of these things personal because this is something that's pouring out of you, whatever the thing is. Like for you, the work that you created, yes, it's for the audience that it's intended for, but sometimes you're just like, I know this shit is good. I know what I'm doing. So yeah, for me, it's still a struggle or a challenge.
I used to hear this and I thought it was like so not helpful at the time, but now that I'm in the business, it is kind of helpful for me to understand that the most helpful thing is to just keep it moving because there are so many factors outside of my control. It could have been somebody's friend. It could have been politics. It could have been the job wasn't even open. They just had to post it on the website, right? Like I will never, ever know in most cases why they told me why. So I can't take it personal because it might not have nothing to do with me. And I know that could be hard in a moment, but it's been helpful to, cause when you on the other side, you see like all the bullshit that, you know what I mean? Like people getting jobs that's not qualified the way you would think they are, you know what I mean? So you never really know what's going on. So you can't take it personal.
I think that's so true. And that's been a lot of my ways of dealing with rejection is not attaching to outcomes, right? Expecting greatness. I always expect greatness, right? Because I show up with greatness. So I expect greatness, but I do not dictate how that greatness is going to look. And I don't attach to specific outcomes, especially those, as to Dria's point, that are dictated by politics, right? There is so much going on in the background that literally have nothing to do with our art. And then, you know, especially with film festivals, even some of the best film festivals, you look at some of the films, you're like, what is this? So sometimes sometimes I tell myself the reason is lack of taste. I'm like, oh, they just don't have no taste. That's why we didn't get in. No taste. But then I also have to realize, because most of my friends are artists and we're all in this struggle together. And to your point, Georgette, about the worth is, I think this business, that's how this business survives, is by having us have our worth intrinsically tied to it. Right. Because when we realize we don't need this business in the way that they want us to need it, things would change and shift dramatically. Right. So the business feeds off of our anxiety and desperation to be tied to it and to want their things. Right. But then when you realize that that is a very small way for us to be thinking about ourselves, because I know when I am really all in my own ego, that's when I'm most disappointed. When I realize that my shit is bigger than any of this business and the purpose is bigger and I am just a vessel. Like, this ain't about me. This is about helping Black women get free. This is about telling stories. This ain't about me. When I remove myself from it, it really helps to realize, oh, I got to keep going because I'm a vessel, right? I cannot let these sort of rejections that are tied to like, oh, did I get into this festival? Or, oh, did I get this award? No, the purpose is bigger. And that's helped to really free me up, because I'll see friends. I talked about this, you know, a friend who didn't get into Sundance or South by and really wanted to abandon their short. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. You just had an amazing screening. You just were excited about the work that you did. And also, you ain't the only one that worked on this.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we really start to get really in our own shit, thinking it's tons of craftspeople that worked on this who deserve to have their work shared with the world. But because these two institutions did not, you know, let you in, now all of a sudden, how do your feelings change about your own work? So I think us having a real rooted way of thinking about our work, and also knowing that the process is magical and no one can take it away from us, is really, really important.
I think also just age and perspective help you to deal with rejection, because how many times did you not get something and then the next thing you got was even better? You know what I mean? Or you was crying for something that wasn't even worth it. But at that time, it was the biggest deal, right? Like, you just don't know. So that's I think speaks to the part of detachment, because we can't put so much stock in this opportunity because you don't know which way it's going to blow, what's going to pop off. You don't know what is for you, what God has planned. So we're saying in our thinking that this is the opportunity that's going to open the door. Right. But you never know. Right. You never know what it is. It could be something you don't expect.
And also, I think sometimes we're limiting God's like ability and in our own imagination.
She's screaming at me. She's
like, we thinking we want this little thing, and God's like, no, or the universe or whatever you believe in is like, no, I have something so much bigger. Now we're already limiting the universe. We're limiting God because of our own small perspective. Right. Yeah. Like that's something I'm also like, oh, no. And sometimes it's also protection. I remember I didn't get a job in this room and I was like, oh my gosh, it was a lot of money. I was crushed. The room was a shit show. I would have never been able to really survive that room, you know? So when now I'm like, oh, this is not for me, and realizing and also really believing that what's for me will find me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to block it.
You know what? When I get that, like that take it personal, that it's like, well, no, it's because I really believed in myself and thought I deserved it. And so I take that ego boost and I just let it be some momentum to go and apply for the next thing.
I love that.
Well, I've also found, this is strange. I'm curious if this has been for you all too. You know, living in New York City, there's also like the energy of the city. You learn to deal with things a lot quicker as well and not taking things personal. So it was an exercise on dealing with rejection because everything is rejecting you. Landlords, strangers in the streets, people yelling at you. And you literally have to, you have to literally move through your day, right? You got to get to the next thing. So I've also, you know, with me working through the worth thing, but I've also found like living in New York City has been helpful in navigating certain things. Like I don't take it personal when I don't hear back from somebody. If I don't get an email back from someone, I'm like, all right, cool. Georgette, you tried. If someone doesn't reply to this, cool. You at least attempted. And so there's some things where I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm good. I'm not taking it personal. And there's other things I'm like, Georgette, come on. Like, let's detach from that.
Totally agree with that. Like how life can help us to, you know, build that resistance and resilience, I guess is the word. I feel like one of my biggest, one thing I also want to say is racism and sexism. You know what I mean? Like sometimes that's just what it is too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially in this business, I'm like, but it's also what I think is interesting is I'm in Hollywood from the writer perspective is like, I'm getting rejected by a lot of people who could never do what I do.
Mm.
And that also, I keep in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, yes, you rejected me, but you could never. And we are not the same.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not the same because I know I have this talent that will take me so far, right? So far. And you might not. Do you know what I mean? So I'm very clear on like, you could never. And I remember my biggest experience with rejection was when the release of Really Love. And I don't know if it's rejection, but it's like putting something out that was on a more massive scale than I've ever experienced. And with social media, people just be tagging you in their conversations, whether they like the movie, don't like the movie. I mean, remember before the movie came out, there was a whole Twitter thread about it being struggle love. And I was like, oh, what movie they talking about? Girl, they talking about your movie. I literally was like, whose movie? And I was like, oh. And in that moment, I was like, oh, Felicia, this is the people's movie now.
Yeah.
You got to let it go to the people. You've had what you have from it, right? Which is the experience of working on it with so many wonderful people and, you know, proving that after 10 years, a movie can make all those things and the work itself, you know, you have that, but you have to let it go. But in my petty self, because it was one, and for the most part, you know, people would be, you don't need to tag me, but have whatever conversation you want to have. You are entitled to your opinion. Right. You can like it, not like it, all that good stuff. But one person did slide in my DMs and that wasn't the smartest thing to do because I did have a conversation of like, girl, what? But it all comes back to
come get this smoke.
Smoke. And to the point where she was apologizing. But it also was like, folks could never do what was required to get this movie made. So could never do what was required to get this movie made. And that helped me in my petty acceptance of like, you know, getting through the conversations I were having because people would be so flippant about it. And I'm like, this was 10 years. But then you're like, oh, they can be so flippant because they've could never do what was required to get this movie made.
I love the energy of that. We are not the same, right? Because
we are not the same.
Usually.
Mm-hmm. Let me just dismiss you because you could never.
You could never. We're not the same.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to be in this business, like, don't come out here if you're not a little bit delulu. Like, you just got to have, don't even try it because it will knock you on your ass if you're not just like, you can just take take a lick and keep on ticking. You got to do it. Like, one thing I learned from my mom, I think it was just like, she don't take no for an answer. So what I learned very early on is like, no is not no, it's just no from you. It's a million ways to get it. So you tell me no problem.
Choose
that's
one.
your no. I'm going to go and find the yes.
Yes. Yes, mama.
Yes. I just keep going till I find a yes. So that no was from you, but it's not no for me because I'm going to get what I came here to get. Period.
I love that. I love that. Are you a comedy enthusiast or an inspiring writer with a story to tell? How about a seasoned writer looking to explore a new genre? Then our Crafting Comedy Writing for TV class is for you. Taught by award-winning writer, producer, and stand-up comedian Roche Jeffrey. Roche is a multi-hyphenate with credits that include Golden Globe-nominated comedy series Smilk, Woke, Grownish, and a recent NAACP award-winning narrative podcast, Yes We Cannabis, on Audible. In this multi-week television writing course, she'll teach you how to develop compelling narratives, engaging characters, turn your initial concept into a polished outline, develop and hone your comedic voice, while also delving into the intricacies of comedy writing. Bring your comedic vision to life with a seasoned, award-winning writer and stand-up comedian in this multi-week comedy writing class. And when you join the We Create Daily community, powered by Patreon, you'll get 10% off the course for a limited time. So sign up for this amazing course today at thecreatedaily.com. That's thecreatedaily.com. I think what also helps too is I'm very secure in my talent. And I'm very secure in my talent because I keep getting better. And I keep getting better because I keep putting in the work. And I keep putting in the work because I'm committed to the work and I prioritize the work and the work comes first. And so when you have that backup behind you, you know, you can talk your talk and you can be like, okay, they rejected because they don't have any taste. That may not be the truth, but you can talk your talk because you can back it up with the fact that you are committed to your craft and you just keep getting better.
Oh, yes. Talk your shit.
But I think that's where the taking it personal comes in, because you start to, some people, if they aren't that confident, you start to question yourself, right? The no's can make you doubt. Do I have it? Am I that good? So there is a lot to say for what you're saying is being so affirmed in yourself and sure about your skills and what you bring to the table that those no's don't make you question yourself.
Curious on how you all navigate not telling yourself no, right? Because that doubt comes in very quickly. And you have to recalibrate or reposition the perspective of like, no, maybe somebody won't. So I'm curious on how you all have navigated like even the no starting internally or starting with you first.
I don't do that.
Fair. Okay.
I'm about to put that on a t-shirt. I don't do that.
I tell everybody, if you've ever seen me speak on a panel, anything, the takeaway I tell everybody is you let them tell you no. You don't tell you no. And I'm going to bring back another oldie but goodie. I know you guys remember that quote that was like, have the confidence of a mediocre white man.
Yes.
So now that I'm in positions where I've had to hire people and read resumes, the people with no talent be the most bold, the most confident. So that makes me say, whoa, if this fool can believe in them stuff like that, I don't have no excuse because I know I got it.
But I think that's by design. Do you know what I mean? I think it's by design. It's how you control brilliance. It's how you control genius. It's how you control, shape-shifting creativity, right? I will say that I told myself no about directing. I was like, I cannot direct. I don't see like a director. I told myself no before the world told me no. And it was through my very painful experience of learning about this business and how it treats writers. I was like, oh, if I want to be part of a vision of something that I birthed from start to finish, I need to try out this directing. And again, for me, confidence comes from the work. Right. So I'm doing classes, I'm doing workshops with actors. And then I'm going to try it. And I try it with Tender. And so the confidence comes from actually doing the work. Have you told yourself no, Georgette?
I have. Sometimes I think I say it too often, but there's always something, a higher power reminding me, remember who you are. I always hear that voice, remember who you are, think about the people that you're aligned with and the work that you're doing now and don't compare it to what other people have going on because what they're doing is for them. What I'm working on with you is something that's bigger. And so it's just kind of having those reminders, having like your tight circle of people to remind you of different things and just even me being inspired and from my own journey and remembering where I started and how far I've come.
I love that. Remember who you are because that is my thing. Like I am the daughter of Felix and Annie. I'm not even supposed to be here. You know what I mean? They try to take my father out. They try to take my mama out. we're not even supposed to be in this industry like this, So I have to remember that power and that resilience and that fire and use that towards, moving my goals forward and not being stuck in how this world views me and how these industries view me and how I know by design this industry wants to keep me in a certain place.
Mm-hmm. And to your point, Georgette, about just getting those reminders of who you are, I do feel like there are people in my life who sometimes believe in me more than I do. Mm-hmm. And I believe in myself. Yes. So, but I have people who really be like, girl, you can do it. What you mean? Like they think I'm like, they make me feel like a superhero sometimes. Like I got people who be gassing me up. Like
I love
you
it.
Need that. Like, you need those reminders of like, no, you that girl. Quit playing.
You do.
Quit sleeping on yourself.
But you also have to protect that space too, right? Because it's very vulnerable when you're not necessarily feeling like yourself or you're on the fence of the rejection or taking rejection personally, whatever it may be, whether it's around your art or something else. And so I definitely make it a point to protect that space as well, because I don't want just anyone projecting shit onto me, because people are loud in their projections and their limitations.
That's all that's happening. And that's a lot what this is projecting their fear of your potential as well. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, so yeah.
It's clipped.
And a lot of people be threatened by us. Like I would hear people say that. I'm like, no, they're not. But no, it's real.
Oh, it is Black people
real. And Black women. Yeah. They are scared of our magic. They think we're going to take their jobs. It's like, I'm not even competing with you. Like, it's not even that.
We can't even compete.
By design, we can't even compete with you, girl.
But also, we ain't even in the same lane. Like, it's not an ego thing. It's like nobody's in my lane. Yeah. That's why there's enough for all of us. Yeah. No one is in my lane. So we can't even compete.
I feel that.
You know what I mean? Because we're not the same. We're not the same.
Okay. Bring it back. Just bring it back to we are not the same.
Let that be the takeaway. Okay. That is the headline for this episode.
I love it. Oh gosh. Yes, that's so good. So good. Any last thoughts about dealing with rejection in this industry with our arts, with our worth?
I think one last thing I will say is you have to know how to, I say, phoenix yourself, right? When you get that no, you need to know what you got to do to get back to feeling like yourself. Do you need to go for a hike? Do you need to listen to music? Do you need to smoke a joint on a mountaintop? Like whatever you need to do to get back to you, get how your process so you can make that rebound time quicker.
I love that. To that point, my mom would always say, she was a elementary school principal for a long time. And that's a really, really challenging job. And she'd say sometimes she would have to go in her office, she'd give herself a cry, but then she would have to get back at it, right? For the kids. So I feel the same way. It's like, I try to give myself some time to be in my feelings. I want to feel my feelings, right? Because as an artist, I have to feel my feelings, but I'm not going to let that consume or control me. And then also I use it as fuel and fire. Like, oh, okay. They don't know who I am. I get it. Let me continue doing the work. Yeah. Maybe they'll know, maybe they won't, but let me continue doing the work because I have people to serve.
Those are all good ones.
Amen.
Ooh, I echo.
Also going on a shirt. I echo. So this takes us to our segment we call How We Create, where we share all forms of inspiration that may have stopped us in our tracks, made us laugh, had us shouting, or even reminded us to rest. What are we vibing on these days?
In the spirit of this episode, I got into the Rocky franchise. I wasn't really interested in Rocky, but I've been watching Creed. I like the Creeds. And like someone was like, if you're going to watch Rocky, watch the first three. But they advised, they're like, watch Rocky, not because the writing is good. Literally, it's the story of the underdog. Sylvester Stallone wanted to make this movie. They did not want to make this movie when it came out, and he learned how to write. And so he wrote this movie. And for nothing else, I was like, let me watch this. And so for me, it's the theme of the underdog, the story of the underdog for what's been helpful to watch.
Child, I loved Rocky. I would watch Rocky 1 and Rocky 2 like all the time. And then I thought Ryan Coogler, I think he's one of the smartest directors, not just from a business standpoint. Creed was such a brilliant like next movie for him after Fruitvale Station. And like the way that he blended commercial viability with great directing, and it's just so brilliant. So I've seen all the Creeds as well. So I love that.
Yeah, because I wanted to connect the dots. They were like, you'll learn more about Creed's story if you watch at least the first two Rockies. Oh yeah, and shout out to Carl Weathers. May he rest in peace.
I think also in the spirit of this episode, I had a meeting with a director and he asked me about my 10-year plan. And I had realized I come to hate that question because I'm like, this industry is too volatile to have a 10-year plan. How can you plan down the road for something that's just changing day by day? But what he said to me was the point of a 10-year plan is so that you move with intention. Figure out the life you want to live and work backwards and get to it. And so it made me question myself and say, have you been downsizing your dreams and calling it realistic or practical?
Right? So, and what was the answer to that?
I went home and I said to myself, allowing yourself to dream again and to dream big is an act of faith.
Yes.
So having a 10-year plan is an act of faith to say that I don't know what the business is going to look like in 10 years, but I know the life I want to live and how I want to feel when I'm walking around and getting up in the morning. And I'm going to work toward that no matter what else is going on around me. That is an act of faith and believing in yourself.
I love that. I love that. I'm inspired by Angel Lakita Moore. Angel Lakita Moore is the star of our short Look Back at It. And she has had an incredible year. You know, the force behind One Margarita, the hit song that she was rapping off the dome and became a hit song. She's nominated for 4 NAACP awards, and she's a creator, a mother. It's been so inspiring seeing her glow up and the work that she's been putting in consistently for a long time. And also just the relationship that she has with her audience. I'm always inspired by people who have really strong relationships to their audience. So shout out to Angel.
Shout out Angel. Yes. But shout out you real quick because your other podcast got nominated for NAACP Image Awards. So shout out Shop.
We're twice nominated. I mean, you know, it kind of means to me that like me and Michelle Obama are the same. You know what I mean? Because we're in the same category. We're
I love it.
Could you imagine? I mean, you know, we're the same. We're the same, essentially. So... But thank y'all for tuning in to another episode. Peace. Thanks for listening to the Creative Cut Up Podcast, a lively and honest space for storytellers that sits at the intersection of craft, business, and independence. Listen to us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you dig it, subscribe, rate, review, and please tell a friend. If you need help getting back into your creative practice, check out the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal. You can also join our newsletter and our We Create Daily community, both of which provide even more resources and opportunities to thrive creatively at thecreatedaily.com. And lastly, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn at The Create Daily. Creating is hard as hell, but community can make all the difference. Join We Create Daily, our community of storytellers of all kinds who, like you, are looking to advance their craft, careers, and creativity. Join our membership community today at thecreatedaily.com. That's thecreatedaily.com. And make your creative journey a little easier alongside like-minded storytellers just like you.